Hello everybody, yes, this is another episode 3 in fact, of The Sporting Fix. If you are new to the show, or haven't heard of it recently, my name is Jonesy, and round 24, as we go straight into it, was an absolute cracker. Before we begin, I just want to talk you through how the episode will pan out. We will do the traditional wrap-up of the round. We'll obviously talk about what teams impressed and what teams we can focus on in that round, the last round of 2023. We'll talk about the retirement because obviously the very end of the season we do get a lot of retirees and people hanging up their boots, saluting the game in fashion, and we'll just talk about that and I guess congratulate them on a fantastic career. And then we go to a little final summary of the ladder in 2023 just to see how everything went for teams before we conclude the season. And then finally, or secondly, actually, Brownlow, Coleman, Rising Star winners. I'll talk about my predictions, who will win the Brownlow, who I guess we already know the Coleman medalist, but how he got there. The Rising Star winner. And then finally, the tips and the road for the finals this year. There's a lot to talk about. There was a lot to witness in this round 24 of the AFL Premiership season. So we go to Essendon versus Collingwood. And I'll say it again. I said it last week, but I'll say it again. Collingwood hosting another Friday night game. They've done it for about 3 weeks in a row, I think, and it was just a demolition. It's only one word to put it. It was a demolition. It was one of the worst endings to a season you'll ever see by Essendon. Just a terrible way to end. The only positive for the Dons was that their captain, Zach Merritt, 36 disposals at 83% disposal efficiency. He has been the only real one in this second half of the season to stand up and try and lead his team. No one's just followed after him. It's been a real disappointment for the Dons and Brad Scott. We know his comments he made to the media saying, it's time to get past being a mediocre club. And that was a big statement by the skipper, but it had to be said because it's true. They have been a mediocre side for quite some time. They need to get past that. He explained that, and hopefully they can do that next year. But to end the season like this, you just feel like you're going to pre-season on a low, dull moment. So it's a real disappointing end. They had the slightest of hope to make finals, but yeah, they were tortured early on in the game. McDonald, Tip and Woody, he was farewelled on a low. There was not a lot to take out of for Essendon. But Collingwood, yep, Tom Mitchell, 33 disposals and a goal. He played well. De Goey, he is really good. 27 disposals and a goal. He finds his way onto the scoreboard again and collecting the Sharon. But 70-point win to Collingwood. They solidify their minor premier slot, which is crucial for them, even though we already knew they were probably going to do that. They just showed why they are the real deal in 2023. That's that. So Hawthorn and Fremantle. MCG, again, the Hawks, they were trampled by the Dockers at home, but I feel like it was almost surprising in a way because they've beaten Collingwood at home, the Hawks. They've been higher than a subpar team. Like, they've been more classy. I was actually expecting them to get the job done, but they, in the end, got defeated quite comfortably by the Dockers by 37 points, in fact. Brayshaw, 33 disposals. Again, he continues to really dominate. He had 8 tackles and a goal. The youngster, Jai Amos, he had 3 goals. He's a young gun. He's kicked 40 plus this year. He's really, I guess, shown or burst onto the scene, shown the AFL why he's the real deal in the future. We saw Finn McGuinness. We thought he would have gone to Sarong or Brayshaw. Unexpectedly, he went to Luke Ryan. He kept him to just 1 kick in the first term. But then Luke Ryan found the pill, worked his way into the game. But I just, like Finn McGuinness, I can't get over this kid. Whoever they put him to, I feel like the Hawks, they should have put him to Sarong or Brayshaw, the ones that really do the damage in the middle of the ground. But they put him to Luke Ryan, and again, he kept him to 1 disposal. So whoever he goes to, he makes a difference. So not a lot to be said there. Neither teams are making finals. It's just a little, I guess, last bit of flicker of hope, a bit of flicker of positivity as they head into the preseason. Freo got that. 37-point winners over the Hawks. Now we go to one of the most surprising upsets, I guess, for quite some time. North Melbourne absolutely putting the Suns to bed. I mean, if there were any signs of the Roos tanking, well, that can be just wiped out of the room because they just absolutely slaughtered the Suns in every aspect of the game. Obviously, when we talked about tanking, they got the win, and it's important to get wins, I guess, to build a culture at a footy club. And yeah, they left the Suns at sea. Nick Larkey, 9 goals. You can't go past him. He had 16 score involvements. And I just want to mention that North, they went inside 50 63 times. On average, throughout this season, they go inside 50 about 46 times, and they don't use it well. Today, or on Saturday, they went inside 50 so many times, they used it well, and this is why Larkey hit the scoreboard, because he had quality service, and he obviously repaid the Roos, kicking 9 goals, and pretty much, well, not single-handedly, but really helped the Roos get over the line. Larkey, I feel like if they did this time and time again, the Roos throughout the season, Larkey would be a Coleman medalist. It's only North have got to be consistent. They had one really good game, but I feel like they can produce that next season. And if they do so, Larkey, he will be a Coleman medalist one day. Another positive, Eddie Ford, he picked up 3 goals in a Rising Star nomination. Taron Thomas, he's a gun. He's really silky. The way he handballs and gets his way through contests to just create space was really positive to see. Since he's come back, he's been elite. Bailey Scott, he had a brilliant 33 disposals. I mean, I could list so many players. Everyone did their job. And you got to remember, North Melbourne, they beat the Suns by 35 points without LDU, without Wardlaw, without Zerha. Obviously, they probably won't get Harley Reid, but they still have a chance because West Coast may pick Dan Curtin, who is from WA. There've been news and talks about that. So I guess they can finish on a win and they can still get Harley Reid, and that would be an absolute win for them. But in a Suns point of view, there's not a lot to like from that game, but if there is one person I want to mention, it is the young Butterick. He uses it so well, and he seems like a very classy player. He's a really good left boot, and yeah, it was about the only positive I saw from the Suns. When you lose to a team who is 17th, there's not a lot to take away apart from that young man who has a bright future ahead of him. It's weird because North Melbourne, they won their first 2 games, but if you had said to one of North supporters saying, you'll win your first game and you'll win your last, you would have thought that they've done all right, but it's just the middle of the season was so tragic. You just could not script it any worse than they have. So, but it's good to end on a win and really try and take that into next season with a win on their belt. So I guess that's good for them. Twilight match at the Gabba, Brisbane and St Kilda. The Lions, again, they remain undefeated at home. They haven't lost at the Gabba at all this year. Brisbane, they won by 12 points, but they were quite inaccurate. They kicked 9 goals, 18, so they could have really won by a whole lot more, but it doesn't matter because they get the home qualifying final, which is crucial. The Saints, they will have a home and elimination final against the Giants. Membry with 3 goals. Sinclair with 30 disposals. Again, he just continues his merry way like he always does. Neil with 30 disposals. Positives from both teams. I think the Saints would have been happy with their effort. They just really would have liked to get the win. 12 points against Brisbane at the Gabba is a good effort. But yeah, Brisbane get a home qualifying final and the Saints get a home elimination final, which is pretty crucial considering if they want to go deep into the finals. We now head down south into Geelong where they hosted Western Bulldogs at GMHBA. There were a lot of changes for Geelong coming into the game. They got convincingly defeated by the Dogs. The only problem with the Dogs I have is you just never know what they're going to dish up. One moment they lose to the Eagles and then next they beat the reigning premiers. It's literally pot luck. I thought they were going to lose to the Cats at home because obviously losing to the Eagles you wouldn't expect them to do well, but yeah, you just never know what they're going to dish up. They just miss out on finals. I hate to say it, but I don't feel like they deserve to make finals. Isaac Smith, they farewelled him really well. They didn't get the win, but he left everything he had on that field. 36 disposals and a goal. What a way to end your career. Even though they didn't get the win, he did leave everything out on the field. Bontempelli, Treloar, Libba, they did their job. They had 96 disposals between them. It's too late now, but hopefully they can do the same next year. West Coast and Adelaide at Optus, again, playing for sheep stations now. West Coast, they end up now with the first pick. Seemed like they tanked that last quarter. They only scored 2 points and they coughed up 6 goals in the last. But I don't know if we were really expecting them to really try. Laird had 37 disposals. Walker had 9 goals. Nothing really matters in this game, as I mentioned. The Crows aren't making finals. The Eagles finished with the wooden spoon for the second year in a row. So not much to be said there. It's just the only question is whether they'll pick Harley Reid or Dan Curtin. It'll be an interesting preseason draft this preseason. So Port Adelaide and Richmond, Sunday afternoon football. It was a very early game. It was 12 o'clock local time, 12:30 Eastern Daylight Time. It was an even contest until about halfway through the last quarter where Port just absolutely demolished them. They kicked 5-1. Rosie again, 33 disposals and a goal. Butters with 30 disposals. They continue their case as to be potentially a future Brownlow medalist. Martin, wow, I've got to point this bloke out. I know it's only 2 games, but he's had 2 games in a row where he's been really, really damaging. He had 33 disposals and a goal. Is he back to his best? I know it's very late in the season, so he's going to have to try and reset next year, but it's really good to see the bloke up and about and just tearing the game to shreds. Port and Richmond, an interesting fact, they are the bottom 2 teams for shot accuracy, and it was witnessed in that game. Port Adelaide, 13 goals, 16.94, and Richmond, 8 goals, 15.63. So if there's anyone thinking they're accurate, well, think again, because that was an absolute disaster in front of the big sticks. Sydney and Melbourne, prime time, 3:20. Melbourne, they get the job done, but it was off the back of inaccurate scoring from the Swans. They scored 7 goals, 14. Errol Goulden, again, he just continues to impress. 42 disposals and 2 goals from long range. He roosted 2 absolute bombs and struck them extremely well. Callum Mills, they had 30 disposals and 12 tackles. What an effort for him, bringing the physical nature to the game and picking up the Sharon as well. Bailey Fritsch, he's back to what he does best. He's back in the team. He's back kicking goals. He kicked 5 goals this week. Boy, they've missed him. And then, unfortunately, so it's a bit bittersweet again. So Bailey Fritsch back in the team kicking goals. But then Jake Melksham, a heartbreaking ACL for him. We know Melbourne will obviously make finals and they'll potentially go deep into finals. But Jake Melksham, that is a disaster for him. Ever since Fritsch went out of the side, he's been a brilliant aspect, and to see him be out for the next year is really heartbreaking, so we wish him all the best. At halftime we saw Buddy, his farewell. It was a good sight to see. He deserved it, obviously. The Swans, they just sneak into the top 8. In the end of it, they will face Carlton in Melbourne. The D's, they've lost 7 games, but 3 of them have been under a goal, and the other 5 have been under 2 goals. So when they lose, they don't lose by much, so they could sort of take that into finals knowing that they can bring it up into any team they face. So that's pretty crucial heading into the pointy end of the season where you really try to lift the cup at the end of September. They know that they can take it up to any team that comes their way. And now we go to the last game of the 2023 AFL Premiership home and away season. We saw the Giants devour the Blues really in the second half. It was a demolition. Tom Green, he had 35 disposals. The bloke just can't be stopped. He's young. He's absolutely tearing the game to shreds. I feel like he's in for his best season next year. Toby Green, he kicked 4 goals. The Giants, they kicked the Dogs out of the 8 and they move up to 7th spot, facing the Saints in the second elimination final. I've got to mention Toby Bedford. He is a pressure machine. I was watching, obviously, the whole game, and throughout the whole game, he was really, taking it up to everyone that came his way. He was running defensively, running offensively. And, yeah, you need those sort of players in your teams. Unfortunately, he received a one-match suspension, which obviously is not ideal at all, but you think about the positives. They didn't have Sam Taylor, and for them to get the win was a mighty effort against, again, one of the most prolific teams in the competition in the Blues in the second half of the season. They could not be stopped until then. So, yeah, it was a mighty effort. So that concludes the last round of the Premiership season. We saw upsets through North Melbourne. We saw crucial wins from the Giants. And overall, we saw a great round of footy. It'll be interesting to see how the next year pans out with clubs and how they look in the future. But to leave that on a note, we now go to retirement. I feel like it's important to bring this up considering we are at the end of the season. It is a time where we do hear people who are hanging up the boots. It's obviously always a sad time. A lot of people reflect on their presence being in the AFL. We know that, the amount of retirements that we've experienced this year, they can fill up a whole 22 side and more. But I don't really have a lot to say apart from, I guess, congratulations to all that have retired. There have been some shock retirements through concussion, I guess forced retirements through concussion, I should say, shock retirements, and some that have been expected. But I guess they've sort of dropped like flies. I feel like in the past 4 weeks, I go onto the AFL app and I just see, Castagna's retired, Buddy's retired, and they just drop like flies, like a domino effect. But I feel like it'll be weird seeing them all, I guess, not on the footy field next year and into the future. We'll get used to it, and hopefully we get some new people filling in their roles, and hopefully they can, I guess, rest their feet up, put their feet up, watch a good game of footy and enjoy being a retired football player. We, I guess, congratulate all of them. The final ladder summary for 2023. I guess whoever's listening, just look out because this is going to be pretty quick. We have first Collingwood, minor premiers. They're probably going to be 2023 premiers. Second is Brisbane. They haven't lost at home. They'll be in the prelim, potentially in the grand final. Third is Port Adelaide. Ken has set them on fire. They won a massive streak in a row, I think at about 10 or 11, which was crucial for them. Fourth is Melbourne. It's a big call, but they might be out in straight sets. I sort of analyse it. We'll get to that later. But yeah, they'll get the second chance. Hopefully they can use it. Fifth is Carlton. They're making finals for the first time in a millennial. So Carlton fans, have a good time because you'll only probably experience it not that often. They'll be in the finals and they'll hopefully go all the way. St Kilda in and out of the finals as quick as a chungus run into a cake. They probably won't beat the Giants. Unfortunately for them, Ross Lyon, I should say, will probably have to reset over pre-season and deliver them, I guess, deep into the finals in the future. GWS, they're doing well, not a lot to be said. Sydney in 8th position, they accidentally cheated their way into the finals. We all know about that. I won't go any further. 9th is the Bulldogs. They're inconsistent. They play almost as if they are sick as a dog. 10th is the Crows. Well, you know what happened. Score review. See you later out of the 8. 11th is Essendon. Worst end to the season I have ever seen. Such a bad way to end. See you later. 12th is Geelong. Half of them have dementia and are still hungover from September last year. They got to sober up and try and get to 2024 better than ever. Richmond, the dynasty is over. See you later. Dimmer's off to a new club. I guess McQualter, don't know what he's done. Probably jack. Fremantle, get back to work. You've done nothing. Gold Coast at 15th position. They've literally put Dimmer to hell. 80% of the premiership team is already here my ass. I hope he was joking, almost as if Dimmer was sugarcoating a dark truth, and I really don't want to experience that truth later on. 16th is Hawthorn. Young guns, few wins. Don't know what to expect from them. They're probably going to be close to the 8 maybe next year. 17th is North Melbourne. Win at the start, win at the end, but the middle, I have to say, was really, really tragic. I could say a word, but it's probably going to get me cancelled. 18th is West Coast Eagles, the number 1 pick, Semo for another year, and I guess that's the ladder. We don't know who they're going to pick, but that's the ladder for the end of 2023. You probably have to listen to that again. You probably didn't get a word out of me. That'll do for that. We now go to the prestigious medals that are awarded at the end of the year. Brownlow medal we'll talk about. Coleman medal, we'll talk about it. We already know who's won it. Rising Star winner, who I think will win it. And we'll just get straight to it. Brownlow medal, I think I've already mentioned this before. Bontempelli, he'll win it for me around probably 30 votes, give or take. Probably more give. He'll probably be about 31 or 2. He is a contested beast. A fun little fact, he has the most contested possessions in the league, and he just continues to impress week in, week out. He averages 14.4 contested possessions. He's had 332 for the year. He is a clearance king. Whatever you talk about him, he just is good at. So he deserves to win the Brownlow. He will win the Brownlow. The Coleman medal. We know Charlie Curnow has already won it. 78 goals. Walker's second at 76 and Larkey third in 71. But, I mean, I know we're talking about the Coleman, but I just want to mention Larkey again. With a deplorable team, he has seriously shown what he is capable of. A breakout season. And, really looking forward to see what he can do in the future. Charlie Curnow, he is a king. He averages 2.6 contested marks. So that's a pretty good effort because most of them would be in that forward 50. He averages 3.4 goals with an accuracy of 61%. You'd take that any day of the week, and you'd certainly take 2 Coleman medals in a row more than anything. Rising star, Harry Sheasel will win it by the length of the Flemington Straight. He is seriously ripped the AFL to shreds at the age of 18, averaging 27 odd disposals, and he uses the pill like no other. He got 29 disposals against Gold Coast, and I guess he's just been more and more impressive throughout the year, really. The way he holds himself up through tough times is really needs to be considered and commemorated. And a few special mentions. Freo Guns, Brayshaw and Sarong, they are leading the possession count for the league. It's very rare that you see 2 players from the same team leading the disposal count, but they have. And Freo, they have a bit of future. They've just got to use it well. Callum Wilkie, he's bursting onto the scene. Most marks in the competition with an average of 8.4 intercept possessions. As a St Kilda fan, you would take that any day of the week. 8.4 intercept possessions is as good as anyone in the competition. He wasn't really known to everyone until now. He averages 4.8 spoils, and he is just really good to be in the team. We see Christian Petrarca. He's had the most score involvements for the year by any other player. He had 197 score involvements, 10 ahead of the second, who was Charlie Curnow, at 187. But I guess ever since he's been placed into the forward line, he has been more and more of a handful. He kicked 4 goals once, he really hits the scoreboard, and he brings others into the game. So he's always been threatening, but since he's been in the forward line, he's been more threatening than ever. I guess that concludes a little bit of the Rising Star winner, the Brownlow and the Coleman, and a few special mentions and how I think the red carpet will play out. So Brownlow, Bontempelli, Coleman, we know Curnow, Rising Star, Sheasel, and just a couple of special mentions. We now go to the tips and the road for the finals. This is my take on how the finals will pan out. This is such a big topic. So many people have their own opinions. This is the way I'm going to plan this out, is if it's based off no injuries happening and everything is going to pan, like how teams are based at the moment. So this is how I'll set up. So the first qualifying final, we have Collingwood and Melbourne at the MCG. Collingwood will probably win this, I reckon, by about 18 points, so they'll head into the prelim final. I feel like the big guns will fire. I feel like Bobby Hill, he'll go out of the blocks quick. He'll get a few goals. I reckon DeGoey will really set the house on fire. He feasts on finals. He'll have a big game, and the Pies straight to the prelim off a win against Melbourne. It'll then mean that Melbourne gets sent to the semi. So we'll get to who they will verse in a moment, but that's going to be a big game because obviously everyone wants to make it to the prelim and have a nice week off, and I think Collingwood will do that. We go to the elimination final, Carlton versus Sydney at the MCG. I feel like Carlton will win by about 25 points. I feel like it'll be convincing. They'll eliminate the Swans and the Blues will advance to the semis to face Melbourne. That'll be a big game. We'll get to that later. I feel like the nerves won't get to them. We know they haven't made the finals for about 10 years. And I feel like they should, and they probably will just play how they have all season. Kono will kick the most goals with about 4, I reckon. Goulden will collect the pill more than anyone. I reckon he'll have about 34 disposals and a goal, but unfortunately for the Swans, I don't think it'll be enough. The second elimination final, St Kilda and the Giants at the MCG. Prob's one of the toughest games to call who's going to win. I don't really know. I was tossing up, but I ended up choosing the Giants. I feel like they'll win by about 7 points. But it'll be tricky without Toby Bedford, who's played really well in recent weeks, especially last week. I feel like they'll still win because of him. Obviously, I said by 7 points. After they dismantled the Blues at Marvel, they'll really be confident after destroying a threatening team. Tom Green, he'll collect the pill again more than anyone with 35 disposals. Toby Green with 3 goals. And yes, St Kilda will be eliminated. We now go to the second qualifying final with the Lions and the Port at the Gabba. The Lions win for me by 12 points more because they haven't lost at their home ground ever at all this year, which would really help, I guess, Brisbane psychologically, knowing that they don't lose there. Neil will have 32 disposals. Cameron is the man for me, Charlie Cameron. 4 crucial goals. I reckon that'll help him advance to the prelim and send Port to the semis. We now go to the second week of the finals. So based on what I just said, we'll continue this on where we get Melbourne and Carlton into the semi-final. Carlton win. I feel like Carlton will beat Melbourne in the semi-final. I feel like they've versed each other twice. Carlton obviously recently beat them by 4 points, controversially. And the other was when the Demons won by 17 points in round 12. But Carlton will win this, I reckon, by about 9 points. And they'll kick the D's out of the race of 2023. Carlton, I feel like they're a better side. I feel like they can play better than Melbourne. And I feel like they will on the big stage. They'll advance to the prelim against Brisbane. I know it's a big call, but a bold call. And I reckon the Blues will shock people this year in finals. And now we go to Port Adelaide against the Giants, again in the semi. Port Adelaide, they win by about 18 points. I said they will advance to the prelim final against Collingwood at the G. I feel like only more because Port have a higher quality side than the Giants, and overall they'll trample them in the end and probably earn a well-deserved spot in the final, in the prelim final. They've been really promising and, I guess, positive the way they've gone about things this year. We now go to the prelim final, the third week of the finals, Port versus Collingwood. The Pies win in a close one. They advance in the grand final. They'll win by about 14 points and, enter the grand final since the heartbreaking defeat against West Coast in 2018. They'll try to redeem themselves this year and, for Pies fans, try and go all the way. And then the second prelim, Brisbane versus Carlton. I feel like Brisbane, they will win. Obviously, it'll be up in the Gabba. But I could easily see the Blues producing a shock. They have the ability to beat any team. I feel Brisbane will win by about 21 points and book a grand final ticket against Collingwood. And this is the big one. Collingwood, I feel like, will verse Brisbane in the grand final at the MCG. Collingwood, for me, they win by 27 points. They become premiers. I feel like the Norm Smith medal will be Jordan De Goey. They'll be 2023 premiership team, and they deserve it too. They've been good all year. Craig McRae will be a much-deserved premiership coach. Darcy Moore will be premiership captain. And De Goey, he'll be a Norm Smith medalist. He'll hit the scoreboard. He'll get the pill. And, Collingwood 2023 premiers for me. They deserve it, and I feel like they will produce it. That wraps up another podcast. We covered a bit in this third podcast, and we had to as we hit the end of the season. We obviously wrapped up round 24. We talked about retirement. We included the final ladder. We talked about the road for the finals and also the winners of the Brownlow, Coleman and Rising Star. So thank you, everyone, for listening to another podcast. I hope you enjoyed your listen. I'll see you next week. We'll talk about something or just thoughts on what I have in the AFL world, I guess, considering there is no football for a week. Just talk about news and everything going on in the AFL. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. I hope you had a great day, and I'll see you next week.